All right, for pit stop B, we're going to be on page 7, directly across from the heart, the density formula that we did on page 6. If your piece of paper is not already cut down to size, go ahead and cut it. It barely fits onto the page, but we do want it to fit on page 7. And we can call this density practice. I know there's not much room here, but... So now we're actually going to use that density equals mass divided by volume formula. Now when we're calculating stuff with formulas in science, a lot of times you'll hear us talk about the triangle. And this is what we mean by the triangle. We have it set up, if you see, mass over volume, okay? And then our other variable is density. So density equals mass divided by volume. It's the exact same thing that we had over here. It's just kind of a different way of looking at it. So when we use the triangle for density, mass always goes in the top, volume always goes in the bottom, and then density is just the one in the other space. Now, this will help us determine how to figure out the density, but also how to figure out the mass, if a question is asking what is the mass of an object, or we can figure out the volume, if the question is asking what is the volume of an object. So for each of these points, there is a mathematical equation that we're going to do. So we divide on the sides. I think about that because it kind of rhymes, divide and side. And then we multiply on the bottom. So go ahead and add those symbols to your triangle. So what this means is if we're looking for density, if it says what is the density of this object, if we're looking for density, we can kind of put our finger over it and we can see that we're going to do mass divided by volume. Whatever symbol connects the two letters that are left, okay, that's what we're going to do. Now in the same way, maybe they give us the density and the volume, and the problem asks what is the mass. So you would cover up the mass, and the symbol that connects density and volume is a multiplication sign. There's an X there. So mass equals density times volume. Okay? And then if we wanted to know, well, what is the volume, we cover that the V, mass divided by density. Okay? So what that gave us is the formula we've used all the time so far. Density equals mass divided by volume. Okay? We also said that volume equals mass divided by density, and then mass equals density times volume. Okay, this is important because in these practice problems that we do down here at the bottom, some of them are going to ask for density. Most of them are going to ask what is the density of the object or the substance. But again, sometimes it may ask what is the mass or what is the volume. Okay, so we're going to go through some of these practice problems here. If you look at number 1, it says a 10.0 centimeter cubed sample of copper has a mass of 89.6 grams. What is the density of copper? So if we're given a word problem like this, we need to start with what do we know? Okay, because that's how we're going to fill in our triangle, is with what we know. So I know that it has 10 centimeters cubed. Now it doesn't label that as mass or volume, but remember on this page over here, centimeters cubed was a measurement for volume. Okay, so I'm going to put a V over here. This is my volume. And then here it does tell me mass of 89.6 grams. Plus I should know that grams is for mass. So this is our mass right here. Okay, so I'm going to set up my triangle with divide on the side, multiply on the bottom, and I'm going to fill in what I know. I know the mass. So at the top of my triangle, I'm going to put 89.6. And I know the volume, so at the bottom right, I'm going to put 10. What I'm looking for is the density. Okay, so by the end of the problem, I should be able to say D equals, and then have an answer. Okay, now, again, we can use the triangle to tell us we're going to do 89.6 divided by 10. Now notice I didn't put the units in the triangle. I think sometimes that just clutters up our triangle, so you can go back at the end and we can be sure to do our units when we write our answer. Okay, so I'm going to set up my math problem. I know I need to do top in, bottom out. So 89.6 divided by 10. Now 10 does not go into 8, but 10 can go into 89 8 times. So I put my 8 at the top, right above the 9. Then I multiply. 8 times 10 is 80. If I subtract 89 minus 80, I have a remainder of 9. Okay, I need to keep going until I get a remainder of 0. Now when we have a decimal underneath our bar over here, that decimal has to jump right up to the top. Okay, so I know that there's going to be a decimal here, and go ahead and do that before we forget. Now, since I do have a remainder here, I need to bring down my 6. Okay, so now I'm going to ask how many times does 10 go into 96? That will go in 9 times. 9 times 10 is 90. Okay, if I subtract there, 96 minus 90 gives me a remainder of 6. Now I'm out of numbers over here, but I know that I can add a 0 after that decimal, and it's not going to change anything. So I'm going to add a 0 to bring down. And now I'm trying to figure out how many times does 10 go into 60. 10 will go into 60 6 times. 6 times 10 is exactly 60. So I have a remainder of 0, which means that I'm done. So my answer is 8.96. So I'm going to come back over here. D equals 8.96. And then remember, we have to have our units. We take our mass units, which was grams, slash our volume units, which was centimeters cubed. And then if you're doing work, you'll put a box around your answer so that we can see it. Okay, so now it's easy to identify that the density of copper is 8.96 grams per centimeter cubed. If you take a look at number 2, it says a block of lead has the dimensions 4.5 centimeters by 5.2 centimeters by 6 centimeters. The block has a mass of 187 grams. What is the density of lead? Now, I know that my mass is 1587 or 1,587 grams, but I don't exactly know my volume. Okay, what it gave me were the measurements, the length, the width, and the height for my volume. So I'm actually going to have to do a calculation here where volume equals length times width times height. So that equals 4.5 times 5.2 times 6.0. Now, in this case, I'm going to use some scratch paper over on the side since our notes were kind of limited. Okay, but I need to multiply 4.5 times 5.2 times 6. Okay, so I have 4.5 times 5.2. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry my 1. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus the 1 is 9. Okay, I add a 0 for my placeholder. 5 times 5 is 25, so I carry my 2. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. And I'm going to add those up. And however many decimals I have here, I have to have over here, spaces. So I have 1, 2, which means I need 1, 2. So I got an answer of 23.4. Okay. But remember, I was multiplying 3 numbers. I needed 4.5 times 5.2 times 6. Okay, so now I'm going to do 23.4 times 6. 6 times 4 is 24. Carry my 2. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 2 is 20. Carrying another 2. 6 times 2 is 12. 13, 14. Okay, and then I have 1 decimal place. So my answer is 140.4 centimeters cubed. So I'm going to come back over here and write that down. 140.4 centimeters cubed is my volume. So I'm going to set up my triangle. Okay, divide on the side, multiply on the bottom. My mass was 1587. My volume 140.4, and I'm looking for density. Okay. Now I know that most of us in math have not gotten to where we can divide with a decimal on the outside. Okay, if we were to set that problem up, it would look like 1587 divided by 140.4. Okay, if you think that you have the math skills to go ahead and do that, that is fine. Or for this problem, since it is a little bit more complicated, I will allow you to use the calculator. Okay, so 1587 divided by 140.4. Okay, so our density equals 11.30. Okay, we're going to keep that at 2 decimal places. Our units is our mass units divided by our volume units, or slash volume units. So our final answer we put in a box there. The the density of lead is 11.30 grams per centimeter cube. Now if we go down to number 3, okay, number 3 says John was trying to calculate the density of an eraser. He put the eraser in a graduated cylinder of water, and the water rose from 4 milliliters to 7 milliliters. Using a triple beam balance, he calculated the mass to be 27 grams. What is the density of the eraser? Now, if you remember when we talked about measuring the volume of an irregular shaped object, if we can't do the length times the width times the height, like in the last problem, we have to use a graduated cylinder. And that's what John did in this problem. So here's the information they give you about volume. Okay, the volume is going to equal the difference in those two numbers. So 7 milliliters minus 4 milliliters equals 3 milliliters. But if you remember, we're talking about a solid, right? We're talking about an eraser. So 3 milliliters, we have to convert to centimeters cubed. And remember, it's a 1-to-1 conversion. So the volume of the eraser is 3 centimeters cubed. Okay, the mass is 27 grams. We set up our triangle. Divide on the side. Multiply on the bottom. At the top, we know our mass is 27. Our volume is 3. Okay, and we're looking for the density. All right. 27 divided by 3. That should be a fact that we know. The answer should be 9. So density equals 9 grams per centimeter cubed. Again, our units is going to be our mass units slash our volume units. We'll put a box around our final answer, and that's the density of the eraser. Number 4 says a block of wood has a density of 3 grams per centimeter cube and a volume of 12 centimeters cubed. What is the mass of the block of wood? So now we're not looking for density. Now we're looking for mass, right? They tell us the density, okay, and they tell us the volume, and they want to know what is the mass. This is where the triangle especially comes in handy. Okay, so we have our triangle where we divide on the side, multiply on the bottom. We don't know the mass, okay, so we still have a variable for the mass. We know that density is 3 and volume is 12. Okay, so if we're looking for the mass, we're going to do 3 times 12. Okay, this is that formula, mass equals density times volume. So I'm going to set it up like this as 12 times 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. So my answer is m equals 36. Now to figure out our units, we can go back and look at, well, what was our density units? Remember, it's mass slash volume. Okay, so the mass units must have been grams. So the mass of the wood block was 36 grams. Box your answer.